Okay, now we have everyone in this meet. So let us start. Okay, in the last session we have discussed about view router. If you have not attended last session, this is the slide that you may go through if you want. Okay. In this session we are going to discuss VueX library. First of all, we have three main points here: motivation, how it work, and then after we will go to the live coding part. So why VueX is actually important? Am I audible? Hello? Can you confirm anyone?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay. So first of all, let's have some motivation about VueX. Why it is important? Here in the picture, as you see here, we have a root component and three child component. Till now we have discussed about data sharing. As you know, root component itself is a component, child component is itself a component. So every component can have data, as we have already discussed. Root component can have their own data, child component can have their own data. Now suppose component 1, this is component 1. Component 1 want to share data with parent. How it can happen? Suppose, think about all possibilities. Suppose component 1 want to share data with component 2. How is it possible? Till now we have studied two ways. One way is parent can share data with child and using props. We have already discussed about props when we were discussing about multiple components, I think in week 4. And child can also send data to parent using event. Okay, child component may fire an event and it can send data to parent, or it can access data of parent by invoking the function of parent. So these are two different ways, but we are missing something here. What we are missing here? Component 1 is not able to access data of component 2, and so on. So this is the main problem that we are facing. So now VueX can help to overcome this problem. Now let us understand how VueX actually works. Here, as you see, every component had their own data. Now VueX library is going to help you in a sense that it is going to make a store, like you see in the picture. In a store, you will have data, and any component, as you see in the left picture, any component, whether it is root component or any child component, can access data of this store. So this store is completely separate. It is not part of any component. So store is sitting somewhere and components are sitting somewhere. These components can access data of store. So this is how VueX works. So there is a variable in VueX, that is a state, that we will discuss when we will go to coding part. In a state variable, we store data inside VueX store. Any component can access or modify data, but there is a restriction, and that restriction is any component that you see in the left picture cannot directly access data. There is some mechanism, and that mechanism is mutation, that we will see in the code part. But there is also some problem with VueX library. If you use VueX library, tracking becomes harder. Suppose this is component 3 and component 3 modified one data inside VueX store. So it becomes harder to detect who modified which data and when. Now the last part, getting started. First of all, you need to import the library. Again, that I have discussed in Vue router, and I told you that if you are using Vue.js version 2, then you must be using Vue router version 2. And the similar way, you must be using VueX version 2. So this is the URL where VueX version 2 is hosted. So you need to use this code. Okay. And second important thing that I have not written here, your Vue.js library should be on the top. After that, means order is important. First of all, you need to put Vue.js library, and then after you need to put VueX library. And second important fact that you need to keep in mind, VueX library should be in the bottom part of HTML. It should not be in the head part. Otherwise, it is not going to work. Now we have imported this library. Second part is create a VueX instance. It is very similar to Vue.js instance. We will see in the code part. Now let us go to one example here. Now I'm trying to break this code so that you can understand it properly. First of all, you see here in the head part, this is library for Vue.js. As I told you, VueX library should be in the bottom part of HTML, and order is also important. In this HTML page, first of all you need to use Vue.js library, and after that VueX library. And VueX library should be in the bottom part. That's fine. Now we have a div. This div with ID app is being used by root component. Let us see here. This is root component, and you can see ID app. It is being used by root component. This root component has some data and two other components, and two other components are defined here, component 1 and component 2. Till now we are aware of everything because we have already discussed multiple components in Vue.js. Now in this session we are focusing on this VueX library. As I told you, you need to first create an object of VueX library, VueX instance. So this is how we create object. New is a keyword in JavaScript to create an object from a class. VueX.store. Here everything is important. This VueX casing is important. The store start with capital letter. You need to remember it. Okay. So this is a store where we are going to put some data. Inside a store, there is a property here that is called state. We have discussed what is state in last. You can see the variable that store data is called state, as you see here. Okay. So this state is going to contain data that is going to be used by any components. Here in this state there is a data with name contacts, and it is containing 23. Now let us see how it other components. Let's suppose component 1, or you can use it even in component 2 or in root component. Let's try to figure out how any component can use this data contacts. So here I've tried to use in component 1, as you see in the code. This is how you need to first of all write a function. As you know, we can write a function in any component using computed. First of all, you need to write computed. Computed is a property in which you can write many functions. So this is computed. Inside computed we have a function that is called count. This count is a function, and this function can be used as a simple variable. So as you can see, we have used as simply count as a variable. So count is a function actually which is defined inside computed, and this count function can be used as simple variable here, as you see here. What this count function does? It is returning store. As you see here, the variable name is a store. This whole instance has been stored in a variable store. So store is a variable. So store dot state, as you see here in this, there is a state dot context. So this is simple. This is how even if you make your own class, your own object, this is how you write your code. State, the object name, any property which is available. The first property is state. Inside a state there is another property, context dot context. So this is how you can access the value. Now count variable has value and you can use it. So let's see in the output. This is child component 1. Till now you can see this is child component 1. After that we have a variable count which is defined here, and our output of count is 23, as you see here. So that's why after that you see 23. In the HTML, as you see, we have written component 1 and component 2. That's why you are seeing output from component 1. This is whole output from component 1. This is output from component 2. So component 2, as you can see, template of component 2 is here. This is child component 2. Till now I think everything is clear. Any question?
No, sir, it's clear, sir.
Okay. Till now we have discussed how any component can access the value from this store. Now suppose we want to modify the value. How it can be done? Let us go to slide. As I have already discussed that any component can access or modify, but modification should not be modification is not accessible. Modification should not be happen directly. There is a property that is called mutations. Actually this is mutations. There is a mistake. I will change it. Okay. So we will discuss about mutations here. We have already discussed store. Let us discuss about mutations. Then there are other properties like actions. So let us go to mutation part. What is mutation here? As I have already told, it is used to update data. Data means state of a store. Means the value of a store cannot be updated or modified by any component outside directly. It can only be modified using mutations. Mutations is just like methods. As you have already studied in Vue.js, we have a property methods. Inside methods, you were defining different functions. So it is very similar to methods. So inside mutations, you are going to define multiple functions. So it contains function. Now, there are some important things here. First parameter of any function should be a state. And function should be synchronous. Why I am telling the function should be synchronous? There is a reason here. Let us explain. First of all, let us go to the code of mutation. Then after we will try to explain everything. Everything is similar to the previous code. Only one thing that I have added here is called mutations, as you see here. So mutations is a property and the value is an object. As you see, value is an object. Inside mutations, you can define multiple functions. So this is the first function that we have defined. And this first function says, as you can say, the parameter of first function is a state. You see here, first parameter of any function is a state. And second parameters can be anything as usual, as you pass any function. So this function, this function is doing? This is actually changing the value of this context variable. How it can change? It can first of all write state. State is this that you pass here from here, state, which is also here. So state dot context. Inside a state, as you can see, there is a variable context. So you have to write state dot context. and this is normal operator plus equal to n. So n is that you pass the value. Okay, so this is how you can update value, but again there is a problem. The problem is that we have defined a function increment, but you cannot invoke this function from any component directly. You cannot invoke, you cannot write inside, suppose in component 1, if you want to invoke this function increment 1, you cannot simply write invoke 1 parenthesis open parenthesis close. You cannot invoke directly. Why it is here? I am saying why it works in this manner. Let us see. Function cannot be invoked directly from a component. Instead, use commit. Why it cannot be invoked directly? Because there might be some conflicts, because multiple components might be updating same value. See here in component 1, you want to update the value of contacts. At the same time, suppose you want to update the value of contacts from component 2. Then there might be some conflict, and this concept actually comes from DBMS. If you have already studied DBMS, you might be aware about commit. That's why the same concept has been used here, and that is called commit. So there is a way to update the value, that is using commit function. If one, suppose, let me go 1 second here. If component 1 has already committed means finished updating the value contacts, then after this component can update the value using commit. So to overcome the so to overcome with the conflicts, as you see here, if two components are updating to same value simultaneously, there might be some conflict. I think you all are aware of conflicts when multiple functions are updating same value. How many of you have already studied DBMS? Can you reply? Hello?
Sir, I've studied, but I'm unable to recall this.
Okay. So, as I will told you, this is a variable contacts. It can be accessed directly by any component, but it cannot be updated directly. The way it can be updated is using, there is a mutation property. Inside this you need to define a function, and you cannot directly invoke this function from any component. There is a way to invoke this function, and that way is using, first of all, you need to write a store. As you see here, this variable is a store where this whole instance is saved. Store dot commit, and that function that you want to invoke. Here we want to invoke increment function. That's why we have written store dot commit, and you need to write the function name. After the function name, you can pass the required parameter. As you see here, this function is accepting one parameter, which is n. So we have passed here 5. So this count function is going to first of all invoke the increment function, and increment function means this function is going to update the value of contacts by how much amount? By 5, because we have passed here 5. So initial value of contacts was 23. Finally value of contacts will become 23 plus 5 equal to 28, and after that we are returning this value store.state.contacts. We are returning this value to this function count, and this is simply a variable, and we can use this variable here. So in the previous code you have seen this part only. Okay, in this code we are also invoking a function of a store, and this is the way you can invoke function of a store. In the previous code we have seen that value of this count was 23, because contacts value was 23, but here First of all, we are invoking a function, we are increasing the value, and after that value will become 28. That's why you are seeing here 28. I think till now everything is clear. If you have any question, you can ask.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So from my side, this was all about this VueX. In last session, we have already discussed view router, and we have already discussed activity question and practice question. If you have any question regarding VueX, then you may ask, and I will suggest to go through lectures and screencast of VueX. So introduction to VueX. So this is first, and then after you can send a screencast 7.1. So screencast 7.1 is all about VueX. You can go through it. Then after you can, if you want to develop your project using single file component SFC, then you can study this screencast 7.2. I think if you want to learn, you should go through it. But I have not used command line interface.
Okay, sir.
I have never used command line interface in my code, in my project. That's why I cannot assist about command line, right? If you do not have any question,
Okay, sir.
if you do not have any question, I think it is time to stop this meeting, right?
No question, sir. It's clear till date.
Okay. And there are one more property here. In fact, many properties. If you want to learn from VueX library documentary, you can go through even documentary part. One more property here, which is action, which was explained by professor. And one thing that actually I missed here, I was trying to tell you why this functions inside mutation should be synchronous. Let me give you some explanation. The function should be synchronous. Why it mean? What does it mean? The function should be synchronous. I have already explained what is synchronous and asynchronous function, maybe in week 2. So let me recall once again. Asynchronous function.
Yes, sir.
Asynchronous function means if Java, suppose this is line number 2 and line number 3. Line number 2 and line number 3 is asynchronous function. Then JavaScript interpreter will come from top. It will first of all interpret this line number 1, and line number 2 is asynchronous function. So asynchronous function will tell interpreter, okay, interpreter, you can go to interpret next code. I will be working. Meanwhile, I will be working. So this is called asynchronous function. But here I have told you the functions inside mutations should be synchronous, not asynchronous. Why? Because let us go to code. Suppose JavaScript interpreted here, this is asynchronous. Suppose suppose increment is a asynchronous function, means it will say the interpreter that okay, you interpreter, you can go to the next line. Meanwhile, I will be working. But in the next line, suppose in component 2, the same value which this function is going to update has been used. Suppose same value, context value has been used. So here problem is that context value in component 2 will be 23, because till now increment function has not given any output. It is still running because this is a asynchronous function. So in component 2 you will see old result. Old result means old value of context variable. That's why any function inside mutation should be synchronous, not asynchronous. Got my point?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, if you do not have any question, let us stop this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.